Alright, so riddle me this. You've got 1,000 Jedi, a galaxy in flames, and a war so intense that even the clones are starting to question their contracts. And instead of asking the obvious question like, hey, maybe we should make more Jedi, the Order decided to double down on emotional repression and hope for the best. I mean, come on. You guys have temples, spaceships, and floating chairs, but no backup plan for basic reproduction. It's wild. These are supposed to be the wisest beings in the galaxy, defenders of peace and justice. And yet the moment someone even thinks about forming a bond, or, I don't know, caring about someone else, they get slapped with a lecture about attachment and sent to go meditate in a corner until the feelings disappear. The Jedi are basically space therapists who forgot how to do therapy. And look, I get the whole fear leads to anger thing. We've all heard Yoda say it like it's a bedtime story. But you're telling me no one in the Jedi Council ever paused and thought, hey, maybe isolating emotionally stunted children and forbidding them from ever experiencing love might come back to bite us, especially when they're armed with world-ending laser swords and unresolved trauma. Meanwhile, the Sith are out here forming secret legacies, adopting apprentices, building shrines, and collecting artifacts like creepy Force hoarders. And they're the ones with a family plan. It's actually kind of impressive how the bad guys seem to understand legacy better than the monks trying to preserve the future. The Jedi had the high ground, and then just walked off it. And the craziest part is, the Jedi were this close to fixing it. Anakin loved Padme, Luke saved Vader with compassion, Ahsoka chose empathy over dogma. The answers were right in front of them the whole time. But instead of changing the code, they changed the subject. And by the time they realized love wasn't the enemy, it was already too late. In this video, we're tearing into the baffling decision by the Jedi Order to ban family, reproduction, and any hope of emotional stability in the name of peace. We're going to explore the logic behind it, why it failed miserably, and how it might have sealed their fate from the start. Trust me, this isn't just about midichlorians or monk rules. This is about the emotional disaster that doomed a galactic religion to extinction. Okay, so, riddle me this. You've got an ancient order of laser sword monks sworn to protect the galaxy. They have access to unmatched power, ancient wisdom, and apparently really strong genetics. And yet for some reason, they took one look at the idea of reproduction and said, nah, we're good. Like, seriously, if midichlorians are passed down biologically, and force sensitivity is something you can be born with, wouldn't the logical thing be to, have babies, build legacy, pass down power the old-fashioned way? But no. Instead of a thriving next gen of little Jedi prodigies, the Order just kinda sat around waiting for Force babies to be born to random spice farmers. And this wasn't just laziness, this was policy. Jedi were forbidden from attachment, from love, from forming families, which raises a very weird question. How exactly did they expect the Order to grow? Because let's be real, relying on spontaneous Force babies scattered across the galaxy feels more like a lottery system than a recruitment plan. Meanwhile, the Sith had no problem with the whole legacy thing. Palpatine, Vader, even weird clones and spirit jars, those guys had plans. The Jedi, they just kinda hoped another chosen one would show up eventually and fix everything again. It's like if Apple stopped making iPhones and just waited for someone else to invent the next one. So yeah, once you start thinking about it, this whole no family policy starts to feel less like wisdom and more like a massive cell phone. The kind of thing that sounds deep in a temple but falls apart the second you realize biology exists. Now here's where it starts to get genuinely maddening. Because it's not like the Jedi didn't know how rare and important Force sensitivity was. They spent centuries tracking it, documenting it, testing midichlorian levels like it was a blood sugar check. And then they deliberately refused to do the one thing that could guarantee more of it. Imagine a fire department that banned people from having kids because they were afraid future firefighters might get too emotional. That's the Jedi. They had the tools, the teachings, the legacy, and then they locked it all behind a wall of self-denial and called it enlightenment. And look, I get it. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and all that. But love leads to hope, resilience, community, maybe some sleepless nights and diapers, sure, but also a reason to fight, a reason to stay grounded. And yet the Jedi acted like falling in love would immediately turn you into a Dathomirian warlord. And here's where it just turns sad, because beyond the strategy failure and philosophical mess, there's a real human cost here. An entire generation of Jedi lived and died without ever being allowed to love, to grow old with someone, to build something that mattered beyond the next mission. Think of characters like Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, even Obi-Wan. These were people who gave their entire lives to a cause that told them emotional connection was a weakness, and in return, they were forgotten, erased in an instant the second the clones turned on them. No family left behind to grieve. Number children to carry their memory forward. And then you've got Anakin, the poster child for why the Jedi rulebook was so cruel. He loved, he feared, he panicked, and the Jedi punished him for feeling anything at all. Instead of support, he got shame. Instead of help, he got exile. And instead of being saved, he fell deeper into the very thing they tried to suppress. It's not that Jedi weren't capable of love. It's that the Order refused to let them express it, and in doing so, they stripped away the most powerful motivator any being can have. Love isn't a distraction, it's an anchor, something that keeps people from getting lost in the void. And the Jedi tossed that anchor into hyperspace and hoped no one noticed. So yeah, behind all the robes and wisdom and epic lightsaber choreography was a system that left its heroes hollow. Noble on the outside, but lonely on the inside. And honestly, that's not peace. That's tragedy. But here's the twist. The Force never cared about their rules, never played by their politics. The Force moved where it wanted, showed up in the most unexpected places, and gave power to people who broke every Jedi law just by existing. And somehow, those were the ones who changed everything. Look at Luke. The guy who brought Vader back to the light wasn't trained from birth. He wasn't raised in a temple. He was a moisture farmer who led with heart, instinct, and love. He didn't shut out emotions, he embraced them. And the galaxy changed because of it. Ahsoka walked away from the Order, but never stopped serving the light. Leia never trained as a Jedi, but was strong with the Force and guided the New Republic with compassion. Grogu, Rey, even Cal Kestis. These aren't textbook Jedi, but they're exactly what the galaxy needed. But maybe that's the silver lining. Maybe the old ways had to collapse for something better to rise, because now, the galaxy has a chance to rethink what it means to be Jedi. Not just as warriors or peacekeepers, but as full people, with families, flaws, and feelings. There's something really powerful in the idea of Jedi who love openly, who raise their kids with lightsabers and bedtime stories, who teach not just detachment, but empathy. Not just balance, but boundaries. Because real strength isn't avoiding attachment, it's knowing how to handle it with care. Imagine a Jedi council built by people like Rey and Ahsoka, grounded in compassion instead of control, guided by trust instead of fear, not rejecting the past, but learning from it, and giving the next generation permission to be both strong and soft at the same time. Because the future of the Jedi shouldn't be about avoiding pain, it should be about healing, not about hiding feelings, but understanding them, mastering them, and using them to protect others, not destroy themselves. The Jedi don't need to become an army again. They need to become a family, one that grows, teaches, and evolves. Because if they want to survive this time, they can't just train more Jedi. They need to raise them. And that's the final irony, isn't it, for all their wisdom, their vision, their power. The Jedi Order built its legacy on a foundation that couldn't last. They chose rules over reality, ideals over instincts, and in doing so, they doomed themselves before a single blaster was ever fired. They feared love because they didn't understand it. They treated family like a liability when it could have been their greatest strength. They turned away from the very thing that makes life worth protecting, and when the darkness came, they stood alone, cold and unprepared. What they saw as a safeguard was actually their blind spot. The Sith didn't defeat the Jedi with strength. They exploited the emotional vacuum the Order refused to fill. Anakin wasn't corrupted by the dark side. He was abandoned by the light. And yeah, there's still time to fix it. The Force is always moving, always opening new paths. But we can't pretend the old way worked. We can't celebrate a code that demanded isolation in the name of peace. Because peace without connection isn't peace at all. So maybe the question isn't just why the Jedi didn't make more Jedi. Maybe the real tragedy is that they just chose not to. And in the end, that choice cost them everything. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy my videos, please consider looking at my pinned comment and checking out the links for my Amazon storefront. It contains my favorite Legos, my gear in which I make videos, and comics that I read on a daily basis. I update it constantly, so please, take a moment and click on the link. On top of that, check out my second channel, Critical Analysis Hub Plus, and my third channel, Critical Analysis Hub XP. Just one click would go on a long way in supporting my channels and future in YouTube.